It is Friday, August 29th. I'm Scott Seidenberg. Here's what you need to know to make today a better day. Week one of the college football season is underway. We had a couple of great games last night. We have more games coming up tonight that we will get to, and of course, marquee matchups over the weekend. And a massive trade going down in the NFL. Micah Parsons to the Green Bay Packers. Jared Smith joins me here on Better Day for a Football Friday episode. And Jared, let's start with the NFL breaking news that happened yesterday. Micah Parsons traded from the Dallas Cowboys to the Green Bay Packers, and we immediately saw the shift in the spread for next week's game between the Eagles and the Cowboys. And I just laughed because I screamed to anybody who would listen to take the Eagles minus 6.5 because I didn't think Parsons was going to play. I didn't expect him to get traded here to the Green Bay Packers, but I said take the 6.5s now because they're not going to be around any much longer. And lo and behold, we are now up to Eagles minus 7.5.
Yeah, and I don't know if Parsons is worth the full point through the key. Like we talked about this. I think we're kind of, entering that space of, all right, how much is he actually worth? However, the one thing that we can't really quantify here is the letdown factor. Dallas was rallying around him, and they thought that everyone kind of thought he was going to get paid. And this was just kind of Jerry, pandering and getting a little bit of attention. And eventually Micah would sign and we would all kiss and make up. But now that he's gone and he really, there's like a shock factor, like, wow, Jerry actually traded him. How does that ripple through to the rest of the locker room? I think that is a question that we won't be able to answer until we watch them play on Thursday. Sure. But it is a very intriguing, wow, maybe 1 point through a key isn't enough to account for the fact that the rest of the team now will lower their level.
Well, according to Jerry, trading Michael Parsons, as he
that
called
was
him twice.
That was a troll job, right? He knew he was doing that. That was like in Step Brothers, where he's like, "Is it Pam or is it Pan?" Like, I
think I could help with this Pan situation.
that felt like he did that on purpose.
I don't know. Like, would it surprise you? He was just like,
"No,
trading away Michael was just good for the organization."
Stop it, Jerry. Jerry, it wasn't good for the organization. You traded away a generational talent.
This is what
do that in the NFL.
I was looking at social media last night and trying to just gauge people's responses. And the one thing that I saw that was frequent amongst several Cowboys fans or just football fans that were commenting on social media was that, you signed Dak Prescott last year to this massive contract because we know, like, you can't win without a quarterback. But if you're comparing the talent and the impact on the team, it seems like you would pay the guy who is top 3 at his position in the NFL, who's a perennial all-pro, who is in the running for Defensive Player of the Year every single year and is younger and would be under control for longer. It feels like that's the guy you would want to build your team around moving forward, as opposed to, an aging quarterback coming off of injury and you don't know what you're going to get. So it's like you commit money to Dak Prescott, but you don't commit money to Micah Parsons, where we see other teams around the league. The Browns commit money to Myles Garrett. The Steelers commit money to TJ Watt. Like, this is what you do with a player of this caliber. But for Jerry Jones, he doesn't care.
Makes no sense. To your point about Dak, this is his 10th year in the league. So he's a vet, right? Like double digits in the league. That's rare. There's only 7 quarterbacks in the league, 28 years of age or older, making at least $40 million. You've got Dak and Stafford. Those are kind of the elder statesmen. Stafford's obviously the eldest statesman, age 37, Dak at 32. Then you've got all the 28, 29, 30-year-olds, Mahomes, Burrow, Allen, Lamar, and Jared Goff. So despite being the second oldest in that group, Prescott's tied for the fewest playoff wins and the worst playoff success of any of those quarterbacks that are kind of the elder statesmen, right? The veterans of the NFL quarterbacking circle. So, yeah, he's outside the top 7 at his position for sure. And I think the Micah stuff, now, here's where I'll make a bull case. The market's going to get pressed down really strong on Dallas. They already were kind of underpriced. And the way that Eberflus plays defense It's very cover, 2. It's very zone. It's not blitz happy. So you can kind of piece together, a couple of games of maybe they can get through this tough stretch early and maybe win a couple of games early and just kind of sit back and not play overly aggressive defense and maybe get by. And then if that's the case, then you would say the Cowboys might be a little bit undervalued in the market. But the initial shock value is the thing that's really hard to price in here, Scott.
What do you make of the Packers now becoming the betting favorites to win the NFC North?
I mean, we were.
I'll tell you this, bro. When that trade happened, my first reaction, this is like what a sicko I am. Like, this is, whatever. I'm like, shit. I submitted my Westgate season wins contest yesterday,
Green Bay under,
and I took Green Bay under.
No. Bad timing. That's bad timing.
One day later, and I would be taking Green Bay over.
I mean, see, that's the thing that I think you have to reframe. What was Green Bay missing, and this was kind of it, right? I got pushed back a lot because I've been heavy on Green Bay. I think they are going to win the division this year in the North.
Yeah, I picked them.
And the pushback was, who's their best player? Like when the going gets tough, who's their best player? And it's tough to say Jordan Love. It's not tough to say Micah Parsons. So no. I think it answers that question. Now, he hasn't performed well in the postseason. He'll probably get his chance here. I think still it's obviously a net positive. But you've got to finish with a good record. You've got to make those 2 draft picks the next 2 years, 29, 20, 28, 31, 31, 32. Like you can't have an 8-9 year and give Dallas a top 15, top 20 pick. I think that's the key. So you just keep loading up around Love, and I think they've got a team that can win 11, 12, 13 games this year for sure. And now with Micah, they have that start.
Oh, absolutely. Look, I was high on the Packers. Like, the Packers were my pick to win this division. I didn't pick them to go to the Super Bowl or anything, but I just picked them to win the division. And my whole thought process was, I love the coach, and I probably like the coach more than any other coach in that division. And, well, Kevin O'Connell's fantastic, but I mean, Matt LaFleur's got the winning history, right?
They're both right there. O'Connell's right there. He's a really good coach.
But the thing that impressed me the most is this is a Green Bay Packers team that won 2 games last year with Malik Willis at quarterback.
Yep.
So it's like, okay, well, Jordan Love is not it. Yeah, they still won 2 games with Malik Willis. Like, they have talent. They have a whole team and a coach that's capable of winning these football games. If you get any improvement from Jordan Love this year, this is a team that's winning the division. Now you bring in Micah Parsons. Yeah, I agree with the odds move. Right now we're seeing on FanDuel right now, Packers plus 165, Lions plus 185.
Well, that division, first of all, is wide open. The whole conference is wide open. Like, we just did our BetUS pod today on the NFC, or last night, and there's 6 teams in that conference that can win. In the AFC, there's 3. It's the Ravens, it's the Bills, it's the Chiefs. That's it. I mean, there's not a team. I'm sorry, Bengals fans.
I agree.
I'm sorry, Jets fans. Like, I'm sorry, Patriots fans. It's just not happening for you this year. Like, you got a long winter ahead of Mahomes, Allen, and Jackson that you're gonna have to deal with in that conference. Yeah. And I just think that's kind of the top 3, and we move on. The NFC, I think, the Rams are the teetering case because of Stafford's back. But the other 5 teams that are in the top tier, I mean, they're all right there. You can make a good case for all 5 of them. And you can make a damn good case for the Rams if Stafford can somehow, tough it out this year with the back. But from a rankings perspective, Jordan Love was really good last year after the bye. He got hurt early, kind of stumbled his way through the first few weeks, right? Had a tough game when he first came back from the injury. Had to play the Vikings and Brian Flores in that blitzing defense. And then they kind of limped by for a few weeks. Got to the bye midseason. Post-bye, he's a top 10 quarterback across all metrics, and the Packers were really good. So I think if you look at that post-bye and you say fully healthy, now with a defense and a star you can rely on, you give me 17 games of that. They won 11 games last year despite winning 1 in the division. They're going to win more than 1 division game this year. And I think agree. 3-3 in that division, they're going to be a 12-5, 13-14 probably with their schedule. So I am very high on Green Bay, and obviously the skyrocket, the needle can only point up after the trade they made today.
You think the Westgate will let me change my entry?
No. No, you
I'm
can buy
so
another
upset.
entry, maybe though. You might be able to do
So
that.
upset. So upset. So upset.
Yeah,
My
that's
theory
tough.
going in was I expect that division to be so competitive. And I was like, the Bears had the number at like 7.5 or whatever. So I was like, let me go over the Bears and then under the other three
Mm,
teams in the division. Because I was like, 9-7 is going to win the division, you know? And I was like, well, if we go under 9.5 for Packers, under 9.5 for Vikings, and under 10.5 for Lions, I think we're okay. And over, and
mm.
over 7.5 for the Bears. That's what I did in the contest sheet. But man, I wish I could take that back. Green Bay's a double-digit team win.
Yeah,
Double-digit
that's a
win
tough one.
team. Yeah.
That's a tough one.
Speaking of the NFL, we are less than a week away now from kickoff on Thursday night between the Cowboys and the Eagles. That will begin week 1. And up on betterday.com, we released an article yesterday about NFL coaches in week number 1 with some big ATS numbers and even some rookie head coach numbers that you want to check out. Go ahead, go to betterday.com, check out that full article. But some highlights here. Jim Harbaugh, perfect 5-0 ATS record. Dan Campbell, perfect 4-0 ATS record. But that's a small sample size, right? We're
Yeah.
talking about 5 games. We're talking about 4 games. John Harbaugh, however, 12-5 against the spread in week number 1 of the NFL season. And not just that, they are covering the Baltimore Ravens by an average of 9.9 points per game, a plus 9.9 ATS margin in week number 1 of the season. So despite having more games of a sample size than his brother, Jim Harbaugh, or Dan Campbell, who are undefeated ATS, John Harbaugh has a larger ATS margin at
Mm.
plus 9.5 games on that ATS margin. It's a fantastic trend record, and it leads me to the Ravens against the Buffalo Bills, now down to a 1-point dog on that Sunday night game, week number 1. I've said it before, I'll say it again. I think the Ravens are an increasingly attractive teaser piece. Now, obviously, the 6-point teaser is significantly better at the plus 1.5, so shop around and you might be able to get it. But if you're just playing this game, I don't hate taking the point, because Ravens could very easily win. As I mentioned, John Harbaugh is the best coach in week number 1 of this season by far. Now, here's a note on rookie head coaches. They don't do well in week number 1 of the NFL season, and that's not hard to believe. Overall, since 2016, 19-21-3 ATS. Since 2021, if we want to isolate it, it's 10-10. That's since the schedule went to 17 games. But this is the mark that I found really fascinating. Rookie head coaches in week number 1 as favorites. 5, 10, and 2 against the spread with a negative 6.3 ATS margin. If we want to just isolate that to the past, 3-4 years, 2-4 ATS with a negative 5.4 ATS margin. We only have one rookie head coach that is a favorite here in week number 1, and that is Liam Cohen and the Jacksonville Jaguars laying 3 against the Carolina Panthers. So I will just say, I am high on the Jaguars this year, but buyer beware for week number 1.
Yeah, that's a tough one. I'm gonna pull up right now. I'm curious with the Harbaugh trend, the John Harbaugh trend. I'm curious how much of a favorite and how big of a favorite he was in a lot of those games. Like, was it a game where it was Cupcake City, or
Mm-hmm.
was it tough? I mean, this is a playoff rematch, revenge game. There's going to be a lot of heat in this game. This isn't like Saints Cardinals week 1 where it's a little bit more of a sleepier start. So that's the thing that would concern me about a trend like that. And don't get me wrong, I love trends like that. There is a lot of week 1 trends that are very, very good. Divisional unders is one, home divisional underdogs is another.
Yep.
That tends to be very profitable. But I struggle with just like blindly going in, especially in a
So,
game like this, right? Like, this is
sure.
a high stakes game. This is a playoff game essentially
Yeah.
between these
Well,
two
last
teams.
year
This
it
could be
was
a
as well.
playoff cheating game.
Last year it was as well. Last year, week 1
Yeah.
against the Kansas City Chiefs, they came within a toe of winning that game outright. But that was actually an ATS loss for them.
Yeah.
Because
9-2 ATS is a favorite, 3-3 ATS is a dog for the
yeah,
Harbaugh trend. So again, you can see the splits, right? Like when it's favorite, when it's Chalk City, last year against the Texans, or 2 years ago against the Texans, a few
Hmm.
years ago against the Jets. Those were touchdown plus favorites, easy cover
Yeah.
there. The games against the Dogs a little bit tougher, like the Chiefs
This is
game last year.
sure, but if you look at all the games as the dog, when it's been a 1 point line or a 1.5 point line, those are the ones that he covered.
Sure.
Ravens, Bengals, 1.5 point dog, they win outright. Ravens,
Yep.
Jets, 1.5 point dogs, they win outright. Now
Yeah.
8 point dogs lose, 4.5 lose, 3 points lose, and then last year 3 points came within
Yeah,
a
I think below a
toe.
field
A
goal, I think it's a good. I
toe.
think I would play Baltimore. I do think I would play Baltimore. Listen. I thought Baltimore was better in the playoff game last year. I mean, they went away from Henry in the second half of that game. I mean, Monken just brain fart city. I thought they were much better in the playoff game last year. So if you take away
I
those
just want the
Andrews
teaser.
fumbles,
I want
yeah,
the
the teaser's
teaser.
a good look. The high total
I want
game,
the
but teaser's a good look.
I want the 7.5. I want the plus 7.5.
Yeah, I don't hate
This
it.
is the type of game. This is the type of game where our friend Fez would always say, "Give me either side plus 1.5, and I'll take the teaser.
That's
I don't care who it is. Give me
it's
either
true.
side.
He would
Give me
he
either
would
side plus one and a
absolutely
half, and I'll
say
take the
that.
teaser."
He would absolutely say that.
All
I'll
right.
let the sports books decide.
Yeah,
That's what he'll say. That's what he said. That's what he said.
what the sports all the time.
I've done 18 weeks for the last 2 years with this guy doing teasers. That is exactly what he would say.
That's great. There's also one more trend with rookie head coaches: significant unders in week number one. They are 14-6 to the under since 2021. So since the new schedule
Yeah,
expanded, the shorter preseason, 14-6 to the under rookie head coaches in week number one,
that
and that
makes
would
sense.
apply. Yeah, that would apply to
The
the Cowboys
divisional
against the
unders make
Eagles.
sense week 1 too. These teams know each other very well, and it's kind of a tough, right? Those are tough games,
Yeah,
divisional games week 1. And rookie head coaches, that's tough. That game comes at you fast. You know what's another trend I really like? We'll get to this at some point during the year. The rookies making their first Thursday night appearance is always
yes.
a paid spot.
And the rookies with the 7 point favorites, right? Where it's
Oh
like,
man.
no, but they crush it as the big favorites because it's like everyone's like, oh, how could you lay this much on the road with the rookie quarterback? And it's like,
Yeah.
don't you think the book knows? And they're favorites
No,
for the reason.
the rookie head coaches are the ones that usually struggle
Yeah.
in their first Thursday night game. It is a
Yeah.
really serious trend against the rookie head coaches. Gerard Mayo last year was bad. That was the one
Hmm.
Jets win, right? The one of the few they had all of last year. Those are really good spots to fade. The rookie head coaches are their first Thursday night games. I think we'll get a bunch of them this year, right? Jacksonville
Yes.
probably has one.
Hmm. Yep.
Probably have one with the Cowboys and Schottenheimer too.
Hmm. Yeah. There's going to be a lot of trends that we're going to talk about during the year, including some that you'll love this. I call this the Warren Sharp effect.
Mm,
And I'm actually going to try and like make this the thing. It's nothing against Warren because his work is absolutely incredible.
yeah,
But when information becomes too public, it influences the market too much.
totally agree.
And
Absolutely.
so I call it the Sharp effect, the Warren Sharp effect, because he has been at the forefront of the rest disadvantages
Yes.
and promoting how terrible those spots are for those teams. Well, I
Yes.
actually dug up the data, and I'll just give it to you now because I have it handy right here in front of me. But if you look at the teams that were on the rest disadvantage last season, they were actually 56-47 ATS.
Wow.
If you were on the road at a rest disadvantage, which is that's the worst spot you can be in, right? Those teams were actually 28-20 against the spread last year. And
Wow.
these numbers are actually good going back the past like 3-4 years. So, and again, the key that I have to specify with a lot of these things that I'm giving out here, this is against the closing number.
Yep.
So this is the point that I'm trying to make, that I call it the Warren Sharp effect. Now, you could be dominating if you're playing against the openers for these bad spots, but because the information is so public and someone as popular as Warren has been given this information out, it's influencing the market and the lines are moving too much, and you're actually profitable taking the other side now because the
That
lines are
makes
moving too
sense.
much.
That makes sense. I mean,
Yeah.
especially with the way the NFL markets work.
Mm-hmm.
where the games tend to be tighter margins, and if you get a big line move, you always see buyback. I think the question I would have is there any reverse splits to that data? For example, are the games after week 9 more favorable for having rest when attrition becomes more of a factor? That's the follow-up that I would have to that, because I would think if there was a situation where even the market can't fully quantify it, it's later in the year when these teams are really banged up, and the rest does become a little bit more of a factor than even maybe the market is quantifying. I don't know what the data would look like in that scenario, but I would be curious if that was something that we could filter out.
So last year, regular season only, because we're not counting playoffs, 28-20, those teams were on the road with a rest disadvantage. And if we just isolated after week 8 of the NFL season last year, 13-13 ATS.
So there you go.
So
So
there you go.
later in the year, it was a
week
little
8,
bit more of a coin flip.
Prior to week 8, 14-5.
There you go. So there's your barometer right there. Before you get to Thanksgiving, don't worry about the rest too much. Treat Thanksgiving-ish as kind of your, okay, now I'm going to actually put some stock into these teams being on short weeks, having weird schedules, and having to travel all the way across the country. It's actually a good, frankly, barometer for the season.
Yeah.
Thanksgiving is always kind of that point where it's like, all right, tails up. This is crunch time now, the last, 6 weeks or so. That's when I think the rest really matters.
That's a great point. And also, it's like, you know, once the buys start, and then you have to look at teams that, like, I think, and there has been a lot of research done this on bye weeks about, like, whether it's more advantage to you to have an early buy or have a later buy, and what teams do pre and post buy. I think it's all fascinating when it comes to the NFL schedule. I mean, I can't wait for the NFL season to begin. I think it's going to be a very profitable NFL year for us, because last year was such a year where the public dominated and favorites dominated.
65% ATS favorites.
It was the most historic year ever.
Yeah.
I mean, 2005 might have been close, but I think this year I've been quoted as saying it's revenge of the books.
Revenge of the dogs.
I think what's going to happen is there's going to be an influx now. Well, people are just going to keep going back to what won last year, right? We already know the public loves favorites. But also, there's going to be an influx now of new bettors that saw the results last year and were like, hey, oh my God, all my parlays won. You know, all my money line parlays would have won. Like, you know, so they're going to be flooding the market with more money and more bets. And I think that the way to go is going to be playing some of these dogs and some of these other numbers.
I think it's a fantastic point. And I think early we start with a lot of unders too, especially in these games where the quarterback, I think that's another one, right? Like, I didn't know what the over-under splits are, but unders early. I mean, you saw what happened in college football the last 24 hours, especially with these games with these quarterbacks that haven't played in the preseason. And, you know, nobody likes to bet unders. It's boring, but I might have 10 or 15 of them on my card for week 1.
Well, week 1 unders are extremely profitable. If you start since the new format began in 2021, week 1 unders are absolutely a dominant factor here. So let's see. Let's see. Week equals 1 and home. I think it's 30. It's 69. It's it is 39 and 24. Wow. 62%. 62% ATS unders?
Yeah, it's pretty good. That's pretty good.
Your profit margin, if you just did $100 on every under since the start of the 2021 season, you're up $1,260. If you bet every over, you're down $1,890.
Like, and I don't want to boil down gambling to something that's that easy, because that takes the fun out of it. I don't like waking up and saying, I'm just going to bet all 16 unders today. But if you do that, especially if you do that now before week 1, like a week before, you don't do it on Sunday morning of week 1, I think you're going to finish at least 10-6, like 9-7. Like, that feels like the floor to me.
But I'll counter your point just now. I actually think you're better off waiting till kickoff.
You might be. That's a valid point. You're right. You're right.
Like I mentioned, all the public new bettors, especially, are going to come in, and everyone's going to bet overs. They all want their fantasy.
You should wait until post
touchdowns
on Sunday and bet the unders on all 16 games.
100%.
100% right. You're absolutely right.
Well, speaking of betting all unders, last night, week 1 college football, Jared, I mentioned on yesterday's show that I was going to do a little Starbucks money parlay and take the five first half unders. And I believe your quote was, "You're going to go 4-1."
Go 4-1.
Jared, I went 4-1.
4-1.
The
That might be my best call of the year right there.
4 first half unders. The only one that went over was the Rutgers game against Ohio.
Weird game, right? Didn't you have like a punt return, like a weird special teams play?
Yeah, block punt return for a touchdown.
Yeah, block punt. There you go. That'll do it. That'll screw up an under.
So all the other games that we selected all did go under in the first half. Boise State, South Florida, the full game under was easy. That was easy
great
money.
Oh, there. It moved 4 points. It should have moved 14. It wouldn't have been
exactly. NC State, East Carolina goes under first half. You had the Buffalo, Minnesota game.
Nobody scored a touchdown in the first half. That game, I wrote up that game for one of my other gigs, and that was I had my editor text me halfway through. He's like, "Man, this is is this going to be this good every week?" I'm like, "No, do not expect this every week."
Yeah, and then Nebraska, Cincinnati goes on the first half. So we had 4-1 to the first half unders of the 5 games that we played, and the one exception was the 31 points. No, 41 points.
One outlier game. They had more points than all the other games combined in the full game.
It's unbelievable. And then Rutgers doesn't score a touchdown in the second half, and they blow a 31-14 lead. Rutgers was up 31-14, and they win the game 34-31. That was embarrassing. But let's talk about the big game last night, and that was South Florida upsetting. And I say upset like in loose terms. I know it's number 25 Boise State, and they were favored. But, Jared, all we saw was money coming in on South Florida, and this line got pushed down and down and down. Ultimately, Boise State kicked off as, a 5-point favorite? So South Florida was just the better team. They were the much better team on the field last night.
They were. I think the heat was a factor late, for sure. I think the other big factor that I noticed was no Ashton Genty. And good luck, Mr. Madsen. Without Mr. Genty in the backfield, the numbers for Boise State's offense were putrid. Sub 5 yards per play, just negative EPA numbers across the board. I think it's hard for the books to really quantify, the retention that these mid-major teams go through and just how good these rosters are. On the plus side and the negative, like for USF, maybe a little better than we expected, right? Maybe for Boise, obviously, maybe a little bit worse. But a player with the caliber of Genty leaving a program that is, again, not a knock on Boise, but Genty is significantly a bigger star than Boise usually gets. They don't get those kinds of stars very often. When the guy like that leaves the program, it just kind of brings the rest of the overall quality down, right? It's like rising tide lifts all boats, but to the opposite. And Boise might not be very good this year without, having 8 guys in the box every single time for every single down.
Yeah, very interesting. There's no margin for error now. We talked about this yesterday. There's no margin for error in this Boise State season now. If they're going to want to get to the college football playoff, they got to win every game. And, they can lose that. They could lose that Notre Dame game, but they got to win the rest. They got to finish 10-2.
I'll be honest. I think you'll see another team that'll finish 10-2, and that you just can't lose to USF like that. Yeah. I mean, that game was such a dud. They were awful. Unless they beat Notre Dame, that would be, I think, their ticket back in.
But the other angle
here, 10-2 with that dud on their resume, I think there's going to be another 10-2 team because of the nature of how bad some of the Group of 5 teams is. There's going to be one of those teams that gets hot and goes 10-2.
But I think about this. Team will be the team. Think about this. With this game, with this result last night, think about the benefit for the American Conference. Because the other conference that everybody's thinking about that could have the representative in the playoff is the American. And so let's say Tulane or something goes out there and wins the conference and is 10-2, and you're measuring a 10-2 Tulane against the 10-2 Boise team. But then you say, wait a minute, Boise lost to South Florida, who Tulane beat in the conference. So it's this is great. This was a great result for the American Athletic Conference if you're looking at it that way.
ECU hung with NC State, right? Like I think this conference with Memphis and Tulane and now USF, who is very experienced, and they've been building a lot of decent some decent depth with that
Mhm.
roster, and Golish done a good job kind of renovating a program that was it's tough to recruit down there when you're going up
Yeah.
against the big boys and you're playing in an NFL stadium that nobody cares about. It's
Yep.
just a really tough college town. It's not a college town, Tampa. It's just not.
No.
So tough ask, but they might.
Mhm.
Who knows? They might be the best team in that conference.
Maybe. Yeah. Well, long season to go.
Yeah.
Elsewhere last night, I know you pointed this out. Bad night for the Big Ten. They
Really
had the
bad.
results, but they didn't have the covers.
No, 0-4 ATS against Miami of Ohio, Buffalo, Ohio, and Cincy. Couldn't get a
Yeah.
cover against one of those teams. There's a really, really easy way to break down the Big Ten this year. There's 3 teams in it, and there's nobody else. And that's it. It's kind of like the AFC. It's Oregon, it's Ohio State, it's Penn State. That's it. There's very little depth. Indiana will finish with a good record, but they have very little competition. And that's kind of the way I look at the Big Ten this year. And the rest of it is a very mediocre conference that on any given Saturday can get beat by anybody with a decent roster. That is maybe well coached. I mean, geez, that Ohio game was really tight. That Cincinnati game was really tight. Like Nebraska was supposed to be a 9-10 win team in the playoff. Like that offensive line needed 7 guys to block Cincy's defense, and they were still taking sacks. Raiola was still unable to get the ball out on time. So I don't see anything I like in the Big Ten outside of that top 3.
And that was a Nebraska home game last night. That crowd was a Nebraska home game, and they don't cover. They get the win, but they don't cover. So I was looking at the 8 official games on the card last night because those were the major games on your betting board. And then I looked at a couple of the extra added games. So of the 8 games that were on the main card last night, we're talking about East Carolina, NC State, Boise State, South Florida, Jacksonville State, Central Florida, Wyoming, Akron, Ohio, Rutgers, Nebraska, Cincinnati, Buffalo, Minnesota, and Miami of Ohio against Wisconsin. Dogs went 7-1. The only favorite to cover was Wyoming. They were a 5.5 point favorite over Akron, or a 4.5 point favorite over Akron. They won 10-0.
Akron's terrible. The
Yeah.
Macs might be really bad this year outside of like those top 2 teams.
So 7-1 ATS with the South Florida outright win being the only outright win, I believe. And then of the extra games I looked at, San Diego State, Mizzou, and Houston covered. Duke and Oklahoma State did not. So it was a dog night last night. And the question is, will it be a dog night tonight? Jared, let's get to tonight's schedule here in college football. And I guess let's start with the best bet right off the bat. And that is one that I've been on all week, and I am not backing off of it. And it is the over between UNLV and Sam Houston. We've seen a lot of movement on this total. It opened up at 58.5. That's when I pounced on it. That's when you and I were recapping the game on our Monday episode, and we were talking about what we saw over the weekend or last week or last Friday, whenever we were recapping this game. Opened up at 58.5, and we saw immediate movement to the over. It got as high as 62.5. It has settled now at 61. I would still play the over at 61. I just think this UNLV offense is going to be able to score on Sam Houston. I think we're going to see Anthony Calandria play the bulk of the minutes at quarterback. There'll be some packages in there for Alex Orji to run the football. But Jet Thomas is going to run all over this team. Both these defenses allowed over 500 yards of offense in their first game. Both these defenses were on the field a lot. And the one thing that we have to add about this game, UNLV down now. They opened as a 13.5 point favorite. They are now down to a 9.5 point favorite. And I think that's too low because this is not a traditional home game for Sam Houston. So for those who don't know, Sam Houston's football stadium is under construction or renovation. So they are playing their home games at the soccer stadium in Houston, about 70 miles off of campus. So this is not the traditional, hey, the kids are going to get crazy on campus for the Friday night game, welcoming in the big Power 4 conference school. Well, they're not even a big Power 4 conference school. You know what I'm saying? It's UNLV out of the Mountain West. But it's not that situation. It's 70 miles off campus in Houston. This might as well be a neutral site game. It's going to be like it was in Kansas City last night. Yeah, a majority of the crowd will be for Sam Houston, but this isn't an on-campus game. So I think that mitigates a lot of the home field advantage here. And so I actually think you're okay laying it with UNLV. But the best bet for me is on the over in this game.
I would agree. Couple of situational factors here. Western Kentucky ran 96 plays against Sam Houston last week.
Mm-hmm.
That was on the road, right? Sam Houston was on the road. This game was in Bowling Green. Then they go back home. They have to practice in the heat and humidity and go out and play this game in the heat and humidity. And it was a passing attack last week against Western Kentucky, a completely different vibe. Like Western Kentucky threw it over 50 times in that game. They barely ran it. And now you're going to face a three-headed monster, right? You're going to face Calandra, who can kind of do a little bit of both. You're going to face Jet Thomas, who is just an absolute smash mouth. I'm going to run over you, past you, through you, running back. And then you're going to get the change up with Orji. A completely different style of offense that your defense has to prepare for this week after facing the spread it out, air raid Western Kentucky team. Really tough turnaround in terms of a prep for UNLV. And then you throw in the other situational factor. Man, that game was really freaking tight last week for UNLV against Idaho State. So you want to talk about a little lighting a fire under your tuchus after just 1 week with Dan Mullen. I think you're going to see a much more focused UNLV team, especially defensively, especially in the secondary. I did hear they were a little bit banged up there. So I would say UNLV and, yes, the over. But I would also not be shocked if UNLV's defense really hunkered down and really, controlled the tempo of this game, especially on the ground, which is really what I expect them to do.
The more I think about it, the more I want to lay the points. And I want to take 9.5 with
UNLV. Now we got a good number. I got 59.5 on the total. I got a great number. I'm not going to shy away from a total that we got 2 or 3 points of CLV on, but I think the better of the two plays right now at current market prices you're listening to this is UNLV.
So the contest, Westgate contest, it's due at 5:00 Pacific time here tonight. This game would qualify as a game that you could select because it's a 6:30 kickoff tonight.
Love it.
Is UNLV minus 9.5 going to make your card?
Yes.
Because right now for me,
Tim Murray and I are partners in it, so it's going to be a joint decision, but we have discussed UNLV.
Okay, because right now it is I have 6 games. It is in consideration for my 7th game.
Well, I would advise you not to play it because we're against each other, but you do whatever you feel is right.
Listen, if you and Tim and me want to split the grand prize, that's fine. Listen, understand that because you guys are splitting the entry, you're making less money.
I'm making half. That's
you're
true.
making less money.
That's true.
I mean, I have to kick
Tim
something.
and I have been partners. This will be our 3rd year doing the contest together. We've been partners since I moved here. We came top 5 in the Nugget College Football Contest 2 years ago.
Nice.
Our top 5 winning, our play that got us in the top 5 was that last game against Michigan, that national championship game. That was fun. We watched that game at Circa, but some good memories in the Nugget. Now the Westgate has taken over the Nugget College Football Contest. I think that's the best contest in town. I really do.
Yeah. I did when I first moved here, I did the William Hill. And
that was the one we did first. We did that one in 22.
So after that season, I just said I'm not doing these contests anymore because 7 games is a lot. Like you got to pick 7 games a week. It's in the NFL you only have to do 5. And then this year, obviously doing the college football show and getting back into hosting college football shows, I'm like, all right, I'm clearly going to do the contest this year. So
I think it's a good measuring stick. I feel the same way about Circa Millions. Like I know it's expensive, but I think if you take this seriously, and if you're listening to this, you take this seriously, you have to compete against people better than you. One of my coaches, my favorite coaches, once told me, if you're the best person in the gym, you're in the wrong gym. Like you need to put yourself in situations where you are competing against the best in our space, and then you judge how you are, so then you can say, wow, maybe I'm a little better at this than I thought. I should be risking up, or maybe I need a little more work. I should be risking down. But you have to put that measuring stick out there to measure yourself.
Absolutely love that. All right, let's talk about a couple other games here for the schedule tonight. Auburn takes on Baylor. Baylor, a team that's getting a lot of love here in the
Yeah.
Big 12. Auburn opened up as a 2.5-point favorite. A little bit of discrepancy in the market, but some of the sharpest books in town do have Auburn -2. Where are you on this game?
Yeah, I took 2.5 with Baylor very early in the process. I felt like the line itself was kind of telling you that this Big 12, cupcake was, not more than a field goal dog. I know it is in Waco, against the mighty SEC. I think that's the market kind of telling you that maybe Auburn is a little bit of a Fugazi favorite in this spot. But
Hmm.
there's reason to like Auburn, right? Jackson Arnold and that offense could be very good, and the Baylor defense might not have the athletes to keep up. But I think if it's Jackson Arnold kind of clunky Oklahoma version, I think Baylor hangs in this game.
Yeah, I kind of don't really have a feel for this game. I do respect people's opinions that are high on Baylor and their chances to win the Big 12. Like
Yeah.
there's people that I
Paul
respect that
Stone, I
have,
think, the one who's really high on Baylor here in this
yeah, like
spot. I
they
think
have,
that's the one.
yeah, that people have Baylor winning the Big 12. So I'm like,
Yeah.
all right, well, you got Baylor winning the Big 12. Like it might start with this one game here. So maybe I should be on Baylor here, but I don't have a real feel for this game. Let's get another Friday game in here before we talk about some of the marquee games over the weekend. Colorado, Georgia Tech. Now, Colorado names Caden Salter their starting quarterback. No surprise there. He is a dual threat guy, so I do expect him to run. Colorado's also 2-0 in season openers under Dion. We all remember the upset of TCU a couple of years ago, so
Yeah.
they understand the moment here. I just think that Haynes King is the difference maker in this game, and the Georgia Tech offensive line, probably top 20 offensive lines in the country right now going into the season. So I feel like at 4 or less, it would be Georgia Tech for me. Now, if it's above 4, which right now we're seeing 4s across the board, if it gets to 4.5, if it's at 5, I think that might be too much movement because this opened at 3.5. But I'm fine with laying 4 or maybe laying 3.5 here with Georgia Tech because I do think that there's going to be so much adjustment here from Colorado. Like you're not just replacing players in Shador Sanders and Travis Hunter. You're replacing an
Yep.
entire culture, right? And so and this is the first time Dion's not coaching his son at quarterback. So like what is this team going to look like under Caden Salter running the show here? And I just don't know. I just feel like I know what I'm getting from Haynes King. I know what I'm getting from this Georgia Tech offensive line. I know what I'm getting from a couple of their defensive players. Georgia Tech to me is the better team, and I'm going to go with them here.
Yeah, the O line, and again, this is the Pick Six preview book, which I think is the best preview book, one of the best preview books out there for college football. They're going through a little turnover with the offensive line, but I agree with you on King for sure, and I agree with you on the coach, right? Like, what is it, coach, quarterback,
And low line.
offensive line.
Yeah.
I really like the OC Faulkner too. They just paid him a bunch of money to stay for the next 2 years. That is noteworthy because you kind of keep everything intact. They still have a couple of decent offensive linemen coming back, but they did lose 3 guys that were all conference. I think Colorado is a team that we saw the flash, and now I think you kind of see the regression. I would lay it on the road, even though you do have a number total that's going down, so the points are obviously more valuable here. But you can lay 4 here. That feels like a decent bet. I think Georgia Tech's got the edge in those key categories.
And I don't hate a first half under either.
Yeah.
It's the way I like to go here.
Big move with this total. Big move with this total.
Yep. All right, let's get to some marquee games here, and I'll give you the floor. Do you have a best bet out of the marquee games here this weekend?
I mean, Texas moved, so I think,
dude, that was crazy. That was
Yeah.
crazy. So every other book stood pat. Circa had Texas as the favorite for a while, and then later in the night last night moved the game to a pick'em. So
Yeah.
obviously somebody came in, dropped a couple of stacks, or somebody that they respect a lot that they moved to Texas -1. Everyone else stayed put, and then Circa moved that back down to a pick'em.
So they took a large wager on Texas, and they wanted buyback. So they invited the buyback by flipping the line. And listen, Circa's They're really smart. They know what they're doing. I have it on good authority that they've purchased significant picks packages of really sharp gamblers in
Of the
town because they
releases,
want to
yeah,
get ahead
makes
of the
sense.
number.
Sure.
They want to know when the releases are coming. They want to be able to turn off the faucet when they get hit with these crazy releases, because you see the steam on these college football games and in the preseason in the NFL. I don't think it's going to be as big of a deal in the regular season for NFL sides and totals. They want it for props. They want it for college football. They want it for preseason. They bought multiple packages because they want to get ahead of it. And they do these, it's kind of like a good portfolio manager. You're going to reallocate based off of what the market conditions are. And they're like, damn, we just took this big ass bet on Texas. Let's make them a favorite and let's get some Ohio State money back. And they got some Ohio State money back, and now we're sitting back at a pick 'em. I think this probably closes right around there. I like Texas from the start, and it goes back to your point. Like, I think the coaching is in Texas's corner with the coordinators leaving for Ohio State. I think that matters for the Buckeyes. I think the quarterback, I know Arch Manning is being crowned as the Heisman. He hasn't won it yet, but I think he's got the nod over Julian Sayin right now. He's at least played in some big games. We've at least seen a little bit of him, and he has a little bit of experience, and his last name is Manning. That certainly helps. And you would think, I know the offensive line is good for Ohio State, but they're new. The Texas trenches are better. I think offensive line, defensive line for Texas is more experienced and just slightly more talented. Ohio State has the best players on the field, two of them, receiver and defensive back, Downs and who's the receiver's name?
Jeremiah Smith.
Brain fart. But I do think Texas is better in the trenches, and I think they win this game.
I'm on the under in this game. I'm on the under in the first half. I think if you're giving me the stronger play, it's the under in the first half. If you're asking me what's my better of my best bets, it is that first half under. It was at 23.5. You can still get a 23.5. I think FanDuel's got it out there, so get the under 23.5. That would be my best bet on this game. I do think Ohio State starts out slow, and new offensive coordinator Hartline now, but it's also two new coordinators. Obviously, we've been mentioning that a lot. And it's two new quarterbacks here. It's Julian Sayin's first go-around as the man here, and it's Arch Manning's first go-around as the Heisman favorite. We know the Texas defense is loaded with pass rushers, elite pass rushers, and Ohio State replacing two key members of their offensive line. Texas also has some turnover on the offensive line, but I just think the defenses will be ahead of the offenses in this game, and I think we're in for a low-scoring first half and probably a low-scoring full game. But I think the first half is going to be a feeling-out process, couple of jabs, and nobody lands a big shot until later in the second half. So give me the first half under 23.5 as my best bet for this game.
Here's another nugget for you in this game.
Yep.
I got another nugget for you. Right now, Arch is 7-1 to win the Heisman. I mean, that number comes down considerably if
they win, of course,
wins this game, right?
Yeah.
Like, that probably goes down to like 3 or 4 to 1, like overnight.
Yes. Mm-hmm.
I took a little of Arch to win Heisman. I think Texas is the right side in this game, and I think I
lean that way. Yes. Yep.
That would be the way I would go. He's going to be the Heisman favorite. He already is, but he'll be the big time Heisman favorite if he goes into the shoe and beats the defending champs in his first.
Yeah. Absolutely. And it would help my under 10.5 wins for Ohio State ticket. So I hope that does happen here. All right. LSU and Clemson, the battle for who are the real Tigers and the battle for where is the real Death Valley. I am laying it with Clemson. Now, this is one of the situations where I'm going to tell you in pocket, yes, I played a better number. I played -3 in the summer because when this line came out, I have tickets on Clemson to win the ACC, Clemson to win the national championship, and Cade Klubnik to win the Heisman Trophy. When I say I am all in on Clemson, I am all in on Clemson. This team returns the most production in the country, right? They are loaded at wide receiver for one of the best quarterbacks in the country, and Dabo finally goes into the transfer portal and brings in some players. He brought in the kid from SEMO, Southeast Missouri State, Tristan Smith, 6'5", 205-pound, high-leaping red zone target, caught 76 passes and 6 touchdowns last year at SEMO. They got 4 returning offensive linemen for a quarterback in year 3 in this offense. They bolstered up the defense, bringing in Penn State defensive coordinator Tom Allen, who you obviously are very familiar with,
Yeah.
Jared. And that defense is an NFL defense. And also, speaking of the transfer portal, they bring in Will Helt from Purdue to pair up now with TJ Parker. These are probably two of the best pass rushers in the country. To me, this is with a quarterback that in LSU, Garrett Nussmeier is dealing with a little bit of a knee issue. I know Brian Kelly wanted to sweep that under the rug and say this is a non-factor, but we did see the spread go from 3 to 4.5 when that injury came out a month ago. And then it got pushed back down to 4 when Brian Kelly was like, this is nothing, like he's fine. Like I would rank it a 2 on the scale if you were asking me to rank it on 1 to 10 or whatever. But now we're seeing money now come in on Clemson, push it back up to 4.5, which is where it is now at circa. Clemson's the right side of this game. And then there's just the LSU factor. They haven't won a season opening game since 2019. And to me, I'm going with the better team, the better coach, the home team, the environment where Dabo came out to the media and said, let's make sure we got a stadium full of orange. He's like, I love the purple, but let's all wear orange. Let's show up in that orange so they don't mistake it for anybody else, because LSU is obviously purple also. I think Clemson rolls here. You know, I had Brent McMurphy, the great Brent McMurphy, on my VSiN show a couple of weeks ago, or last week, a couple of weeks ago. My days run into each other. It's just crazy. So it was last week, and I told him about my Clemson tickets. And I told him, I said, currently right now, Clemson's minus 200 to make the college football playoff. And his response, he goes, add another 0 to that.
Wow.
Like he thinks it should be minus 2,000 that Clemson makes it to the college football playoff.
Wow.
And I would agree. There's nobody else in this ACC that's winning this conference over Clemson. And then they're probably going to have one of these first 4 byes. I'm telling you, this team is great. And you're going to see it here on Saturday when they're going to demolish LSU.
I'm excited for Clemson this year. There's no doubt. I think the market is getting a little stretched on them at 4.5.
Mm-hmm.
I think the bull case for LSU is their defense will not be a bottom feeder unit. Like up front defensively, they've got some dudes. They lost their 2 starting ends, but they really reloaded a lot. Pyburn from Florida, Peyton from Florida State. I mean, those are top transfers at their positions. And then they got Jamari Butler from Nebraska, who was all Big Ten honorable mention last year, and then a couple of returnees at tackles. So there's a chance that this defensive line is very good for LSU, and they've been really bad at this position for a long time. In fact, they've had 8 different coaches, 8 different defensive line coaches since 2020. This year they brought in, you might remember this name, Kyle Williams, veteran tackle, played in the NFL, used to play at LSU. Obviously great football perspective, but not a lot of coaching experience. So a little bit of a unknown there. A lot of talent on that LSU defense, but not a lot of great leadership. And I think that's where things can get away from you. But I'm intrigued. You know, if this thing keeps moving towards Clemson, I think there's going to come a point where someone's going to buy LSU. I think Nussmeier is really good. I think the receivers for LSU are going to be solid this year. Chris Hilton comes back. He missed all of last year with an injury. They got the transfer from Oklahoma, who missed all of last year, and he had that one really good year at Liberty where he averaged like 20 yards per catch, and then they got a kid from Kentucky who's like the all-time SEC leader in return touchdowns. So I think LSU has the potential to be very dangerous, but you mentioned it, coaching. Brian Kelly sucks in these games. They're kind of scattered in those areas, so it's tough to trust them on the road in a big spot. I think Clemson wins, but I do think at some point the number will get stretched and you'll see some LSU money.
I would also take a look at Clemson in the first half, and especially Clemson team total in the first half, because LSU starting safety A.J. Halsey is suspended for the first half of this game. It stemmed from a fight. It stemmed from a fight that he had last year while playing for Houston. He was one of the biggest targets in the transfer portal this year. So again, LSU starting safety A.J. Halsey will not play in the first half. He is suspended for the first half. So he'll be in uniform. He'll play in the second half. But I think good angle here would be go to Clemson in the first half, or maybe a Clemson team total over in the first half. See if Cade Klubnik can attack that secondary, and they feed off that home crowd, that home environment here on Saturday night. All right, let's go to Sunday's game. Notre Dame taking on Miami. And all I've heard, Jared, and tell me if you've heard this too, the comments about, Oh, well, Notre Dame has bad history going down to Miami. They always lose those games down there. Why do I care? Why do I care about different coaches and different players, different programs? I don't care what they did 10 years ago. You know what I care about? Marcus Freeman and Mario Cristobal. And Marcus Freeman is 14-5 against ranked opponents. And Mario Cristobal is 1-6 against ranked opponents. Marcus
Mm,
Freeman, as the head coach of Notre Dame, is 9-3 against the spread on the road. He is 5-2 against the spread on the road as a favorite. Notre
wow.
Dame has dominated these games. Notre Dame in the last 6 years in road games and neutral site games, 30-9 against the spread. Don't tell me this team can't travel. Don't tell me this team can't play on the road because of bad history that they had in Miami. Listen, Notre Dame might have the best offensive line in the country. They might have the best running back in the country in Jeremiah Love. It's supposed to rain down in Miami on Sunday
Ooh.
night,
What
and
else
this
is
could
new?
be well, it rains every day in South Florida.
Yeah,
But
every day.
yeah, but this could be a sloppy field there at Hard Rock
Yeah.
Stadium, right? This could be a sloppy field, and in a sloppy field in the rain, or just a wet field because it rained earlier in the day, I got the best offensive line in the country and the best running back in the country, and a defensive-minded head coach and Marcus Freeman that gets after the quarterback. Speaking of getting after the quarterback, how about this nugget? Last year, under pressure, according to PFF, Carson Beck, the fifth most turnover worthy plays. He threw 5 interceptions with a 38% completion percentage. If Notre Dame can pressure Carson Beck, they get him off his game. And honestly, Jared, like, how good is this kid? The only time we saw Carson Beck be good was when he was throwing to Brock Bowers and Lad McConkey, two guys that are studs in the NFL right now. What did he do last year when those guys weren't there at Georgia? He was meh. Now all of a sudden he transfers to Miami because he was dating a Cavender and he's the savior for this program? He's not even dating her anymore. Come on.
Oh, that's too
So
bad. You got to be careful with you got to be careful with young Love in South Florida. Not
I'm all over the
Jeremiah
Irish
Love.
here.
He's
Yeah.
fine, but young Love in South Florida is very dangerous. But Jeremiah Love should be fine. I think the one pushback I have is I think Miami's offensive line is very good. I think they're the strength of this team based off of what I see.
Mm.
That's Cristobal's MO. Also, Alex Mirabal, their offensive line coach, has done a really, really good job. They have 4 starters back, including an all-conference tackle and an all-conference guard. And they've got this kid, Markel Bell, 6'9", 340 at the other tackle spot. So they
That's a
have
big boy.
size, and they will push people around up front. To your point on Beck, I do see him as more of a facilitator, not as a playmaker. And you lost a lot of weapons. I think Fletcher's a good back. You've got a couple of good receivers, but you lost Restrepo, you lost George. Isaiah Horton transferred to Bama. I thought Daniels was a nice get in the portal. He's in his 6th season of college football, but he struggled last year in the SEC. I think he'll play a little bit better in the ACC. But there is some question marks for sure about Miami's offensive skill position group. I think Shannon Dawson's a really underrated play caller. Again, he took Cam Ward, 0-star recruit, Incarnate
Mm-hmm.
Word, Washington State, #1 pick 1 year at Miami. That's pretty damn good. So if you can do that with a 0-star, there is at least some optimism that you can do something with a 4-star recruit, Carson Beck. Notre Dame is just like a German train schedule. Like they're just on time, disciplined, but new coordinator on defense. Are they fully gap sound week 1? And the heat and humidity might play a factor. I grew up down there in South Florida. It's no joke this time of year, and they're coming
It's a
from the
nighttime
Midwest. So
game,
it's
though.
also it's true, but it's still it's rough down there. I think this is going to be a physical war. I think Notre Dame is mentally tougher. I think Miami might be slightly physically better. But then you mentioned it right off the top. Your first mention was Mario Cristobal brain farting his way through big games. That to me is maybe the edge here for Notre Dame. Is I think they have a little bit more mental toughness to them when the going gets tough. But this Miami team's no joke. I do think Clemson's the best team in the ACC, but I think this Miami team is pretty solid too.
Weather report from Miami Gardens for Sunday night, PM thunderstorms, 85% chance of rain. So I do
Yeah,
think if
that
it's
favors
going to be a
Notre
wet
Dame.
field,
That
wet field's
favors
going to favor
Notre
Notre Dame.
Dame for sure. They're going to
Yep.
pound the rock, and they are the more physical team, I think, with how they want to play football with Jeremiah Love. And don't forget, they've got another back. Who's the other Price, right? Jadarian Price. Both those guys averaged over 6 yards per carry last year. They've got two backs that I think would be RB1 on a lot of Power 4 programs right
Yes.
now.
Yes, for sure. Okay, before we wrap up this episode, Jared, I'm going to mention that Penn State, your alma mater,
Got to
is
mention
a.
You have to.
I'm going to mention it every week. I mean, first off, I did bet them to win the Big Ten, so I'm a Penn State backer this year because I did tell you I have under 10.5 Ohio State. So naturally, like who's going to win the Big Ten? It's going to be Penn State.
Bet it,
But
go under 10 on Oregon too. Why not? I mean, if they're going to beat Oregon.
Sure.
You get one more loss on Oregon's schedule, you're pushing right there.
So we're going to call this, I guess, the weekly Penn State check-in. We'll do it at the end of every Football Friday episode, just for you, Jared. Okay, because you are a Nittany Lion. Penn State 43.5-point favorites over Nevada. James Franklin always knows the number. In games where James Franklin is a 40-point favorite or higher, Penn State is 4-0 against the spread. And how about this? And this is where I have a best bet in this game. The opponents are averaging 3 points per game.
Yeah.
Give me Nevada team total under 6.5. They do not score a touchdown here in Happy Valley. Okay? They will not score a touchdown in Happy Valley this weekend.
Unbelievable. I found 3 games that were super big. Maybe I'm curious if you found a fourth. The UMass game 2 years ago, they won 63-0. They were 42-point favorites.
Yep.
They beat Idaho 79-7. The very vaunted Idaho Vandals. They were a 47-point favorite in that game. And then in 17, they beat Georgia State 56-0. They were a 37.5-point favorite. Maybe I'm missing one game from this list.
There was, let's see, you had the Idaho game, right?
I have Idaho, I have UMass.
You have last year, Kent State 56-0.
That's right. Yep. That's the game. I guess maybe I only had the 23 season and beyond. I didn't have last year's updated yet. Yep, that's right. Yep. Kent State, they were like a 49-point favorite? They won like 56.
48.5-point favorites. They won 56-0. 42-point favorites against UMass. They won 63-0. 44-point favorites against Delaware. They won 63-7. And 47.5-point favorites against Idaho. They won 79-7.
Wow.
He knows the number. That's what we always say. But
yes, he does.
The team totals. Come on. You tell me Nevada scored a great trend against this team?
From Mackinnon. Mackinnon had a great trend this week. Huge favorites, 37 or more points, automatic in FBS versus FBS matchup since 2013. 16-0 straight up, obviously. But 15-1 against the spread. Georgia also in that mix this week. And Marshall's, it's like a whole new team for Marshall. So I think those are the
point.
two.
Yeah, Marshall loses their whole team. Great point there.
Those are the two teams this week. And I know, listen, I know you're like, oh, look at these two squares laying 40 points with Georgia and Penn State this week. We don't know what these teams are. You know,
sure.
You tell me what Marshall, like, go out. Someone then to listen to this podcast right now, reply to me and give me your scout on Marshall, please. I think you are better off laying big numbers with things that you know early in the season because that's really all we know. We know Penn State's good. We know Georgia's good. I don't know anything else right now or this early in the year.
Love it. Love it. Well, that'll do it for this episode. This was a big Football Friday episode, and that's what it's going to be like every Friday here for the remainder of the season. Football Fridays with Jared Smith and myself on this Bettor Day podcast. A reminder, make sure you are subscribed to this pod wherever you get your podcasts from, Apple, Spotify, etc. Go to bettorday.com. Make sure you subscribe there. You'll get the daily newsletter in your email inbox every single day, as well as research articles that will be sent to you sporadically. Like yesterday, I sent out that article about NFL coaches in week number 1. So we might have an article that comes out this weekend. So it'll be right in your inbox. And if you miss it, you can always just go to the website and check it out. The picks page is always updated on the website also, and that is available for free to subscribers. We did go 1-1 last night in college football, cashing the under on the official plays. We cashed the under in that Boise State game, and we did not win the Rutgers laying the 15.5 because they blew a 31-14 lead, and Greg Schiano's, whatever. Anyway, We have some plays up there for this weekend, and we'll be adding plays constantly on that picks page. So go check that out and subscribe at betterday.com. Follow Jared Smith on Twitter at Jared Smith Bets. Jared, I believe tomorrow you'll be on Fox Sports Radio. Are you doing your college football
Yeah,
show?
we'll
What
do
time
our
is that?
Saturday morning show, 6 to 9 a.m. Pacific. And then I'm actually filling in for Jeff Schwartz on Sunday. So it'll be me, Crack, and Brian No on Sunday.
Great.
That's obviously not my slot, but that'll be a fun show with Crack and I kind of chopping it up there. A couple of gambling degenerates with Dino in the middle. So, yeah, big weekend ahead planned on Fox Sports Radio. Tune in both days, Saturday and Sunday, 6 to 9 a.m. Pacific.
Love it. Absolutely love it. I'll be on VSiN tomorrow night at 6 o'clock Pacific time. So I'll carry you through the Saturday night games, and we'll preview, obviously, the Sunday games. And it's going to be a lot of fun gearing up for the NFL, which starts next week. Got to submit my contest plays. Maybe
Yep.
Jared talked me into that UNLV being my 7th selection.
Yeah, why not?
Why not? We'll all root for
Don't
it
be mad at me
together.
if they win by 7, though.
I will. I will. For Jared Smith, I'm Scott Seidenberg. Here's hoping you make today and every day a better day.